how sad would it be to decide to devote your life to the arts only with the purpose of creating yet another commodity? Like, if it pans out and if you sell it, fantastic.
Great.
But,
yeah.
but I think the primordial motivation should be beauty and emotion, not a check.
Why do we write stories? We dream up imaginary characters and make them fight and fall in love. We spend years writing a novel that, for most of us, between 1 and 3 people will ever read. Though in the case of my manuscript, one of those 3 people said it was amazing, and that I'll always be her special little guy. I'm going to share why I write novels. I hope it can connect to any creative project you're working on or dreaming of. I'm going to alternate between saying I and we, not because I know why or even if you write, but because I want you to feel as included as you'd like in the reasons I'm about to share. So, why do we write? 1, we write because we want to be published. We want to walk into a bookstore and see our book on the shelf. Look, is this my dream? Yes. But once upon a time, I thought of publishing as the goal. I had this innocent idea that if only I could get one of the conglomerated publishing houses to pick me, all my problems would be solved. Getting published would prove to my family and friends that I hadn't been wasting time scribbling words. Plus, getting published would mean I'd finally get invited to those secret literary events like Sally Rooney's notorious all-fur yacht parties. Well, I've gained a little perspective. I now know published authors. They're not like noticeably happier than the rest of us. As soon as you achieve that goal of getting published, you're smacked with a host of new worries. How well will your book sell? Is your publisher sending out enough ARCs? What will the reviews be? Why are there so few reviews? Why do the good reviews not seem to impact sales? Or, put simply,
I know what it feels like to walk into a store and to not find your book. Like, a lot of times we talk about authors, like, what are they writing for? You know, you want to see your book in a store. Well, just get ready. Like, do you want to see your book not in the store too?
And now that you have an actual sales record, the publishers are going to look at you a little different. They wanted you to touch the sun. You ended up being a little more terrestrial.
Oh wait, everyone wants to be an author. This is probably a really bad idea because everyone wants to do it and none of us will succeed.
You know, making art is like, maybe we put so much pressure on the idea that something has to be successful or it has to be like the biggest thing we do. It's as long as we stay true to ourselves, write the thing that we want to do, make something that you're proud of. If something amazing happens with it, amazing.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
And if it doesn't, it's okay. You just make something else and you carry on your like creative journey. That's what it is. That's what it's about.
Do I want to be a traditionally published author? Yes. But I've realized it's not why I write. I don't want to give a fairly broken industry the power to tell me I'm worthy or not. I don't want to hand my happiness to the man.
At its heart, publishing is very unfair.
The reason we want to be published is to help us achieve number 2. We write because books have changed our lives, and we dream of doing that for someone else. Remember it? The first book that made you say, whoa. The one that opened up your understanding of what was possible, that made you feel the world was full of beauty and mystery. For me, it was Roald Dahl, the joy and fear of flying on a giant peach, the anxious ache of running out of the caravan at night to look for your missing father who has gone off poaching in Danny, the champion of the world. I still get that thrill, reading a book that feels impossible. How could Zadie Smith write something so beautiful and hilarious about human failings? And to know that she did it with the same set of 26 letters that we all get to use? She had no expensive equipment, no industrial light and magic. She had a pen or a keyboard and her mind. I have that. You have that. Could we ever possibly do what she did? Could we ever get close?
I remember reading Malamud and these stories and feeling, oh my God, across space and time, this was written just for me. And I don't mean that lightly, and I'm not kidding, like it was written for me.
Writing is even more wonderful because it's a deeper level of involvement. You know, when you're reading a book, you're very caught up in it. But yes, writing a book is one step beyond. It's one, it's a depth lower.
It's wild how intimate it is. I don't know Zadie Smith, but I can lay in bed and her sentences can fill my mind. Her words can pull emotions out of me that are subtle and strange. To think that any of us could have this power, could reach another person in this way, a stranger? How could we not be writing?
Part of the fun for me was being part of some kind of exchange between consciousnesses, a way for human beings to talk to each other about stuff that we normally can't talk about.
3, we write to make our lives better. This is the argument for why writing is great, even if no one ever reads what we write. To write something true involves 2 things: observing the world and capturing an element of it in language. Both parts of this are worthy. A writer is someone who pays attention to the world. Susan Sontag. It's so pleasurable when we come across those moments in a story that capture some detail of life. It makes the world seem both familiar and new. Like, I love this line from Raymond Chandler. He's describing the head waiter of a nightclub restaurant. He had the sort of face that can turn from a polite simper to cold-blooded fury almost without moving a muscle. I love this line. I can absolutely picture an old-timey waiter who looks both obsequious and deeply upset. Chandler wrote that line through careful observation, and that's what we must do as writers. We must study the waiters' faces, and when we do, we might say, "Whoa, hello there." Immersive writing is based on all 5 senses, so good writers need to be in touch with what the world sounds, smells, hears, sounds. Wait, I already said sounds. Sounds, smells, looks, feels, and tastes like. What does the world taste like? Jack Kerouac says we should be submissive to everything, open, listening. I love sitting somewhere and closing my eyes and trying to enumerate every individual sound. I love listening to the din of a restaurant, the clack of plates, the crumble splash of ice being scooped into a cocktail shaker, that one guy's voice cutting through the happy chatter to say, "She hated it." James Baldwin said, "I remember standing on a street corner with the black painter Beaufort Delaney down in the village, waiting for the light to change, and he pointed down and said, 'Look.' I looked and all I saw was water, and he said, 'Look again,' which I did, and I saw oil on the water and the city reflected in the puddle. It was a great revelation for me. I can't explain it. He taught me how to see and how to trust what I saw. Painters have often taught writers to see, and once you've had that experience, you see differently." Being a writer means we go through the world seeking out the strangeness and beauty, and that's a wonderful way of living.
I think the most important gift a writer of fiction can have is the love of life, if I may say so, to be honestly interested in most things.
And it works when we're experiencing the less pleasurable parts of life, too. Like, I recently accompanied my son to a 5-year-old's birthday party in one of those warehouses filled with inflatable bouncy structures. These parties are relaxing if you love screaming, red-cheeked children, cloying, cartoonish pop music, and small talk. But I had a great time, because I went in like an anthropologist, treating the party like the ritual of some long-lost tribe. In other words, asking,
"What is that?"
I noticed how people seem to pair up based on the color of the clothing they were wearing. On an unconscious level, do we think that people who wear the same color as us might offer a stronger personality match?
I don't even understand what I'm seeing.
I watched the way that people would lean in to hear what each other were saying above the deafening noise, and the way they would lean in, and then when they leaned back, they would always nod, like, "Yep, I hear what you're saying." And I thought of how antisocial it would be if you leaned in to hear what someone was saying, and then just kind of came back staring at them. I don't think you can do that. I also observed that the purple room had a purple door, but the yellow room had an orange door. Look, I don't know if any of those details will end up in a story that I write, but it got me through that party.
Thank you. That is all I require.
And this works when you're experiencing bigger emotions as well. When you're experiencing loss or frustration or anger, you can slow down and try to examine how those emotions are present in your body and your mind. I think there's a therapeutic value to this, even if you don't use what you discover in your writing, which you definitely will. That said, being a writer doesn't mean you'll be present in life all the time. I mean, my wife knows a writer who sometimes sits at the dinner table with a far-off look on his face as he plays out an argument between two of his main characters. He's working on that. But I think observing the world as a fiction writer is a lovely way of making the world come alive.
I only get one life. You know, I'm condemned to just being myself, and I have to be me until the end. And I find that so weird to get my head around. That's it. I'm just me, and like I can never be anyone else. And in a way, being a novelist allows me to get around that problem. And I return to my own life. I definitely feel that sense of indescribable gratitude that I'm alive on this earth, that I know the people who I know, that, you know, my loved ones are part of my life, and that I can like look around at trees and that I can experience the sensory reality of the earth that we share.
It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. And that's something that I think my work actually puts me in touch with, because it's like I go into what feels like another life, another world, another mind, another set of problems. Everybody has them. And then when I close my laptop, I'm returned to my own life, my own, you know, problems, if you will, and my own circumstances. And I remember what an incredible, almost unbelievable gift it is just to exist.
People who do succeed as writers, they're literally swapping their daydreams for dollars. They're trafficking in their own imagination. What could be more wonderful than that?
Part 2 is taking what you observe and putting it into words. All writers use words. It's up to you how deep you want to go. But I think the more you make yourself sensitive to language, the more enjoyable writing and reading become.
McCarthy is such a master of language that he knows exactly what to say to capture a feeling or to capture a thought. Like, what more do you want?
When you write, your words must go like this. Bim, 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 bim. Each line must be full of a delicious little juice, flavor.
We write because we want to muck around in language. We want to try on adjectives like outfits before a big date.
The night was humid. The night was humid. No, wait. Hot. The night was hot. The night was hot and wet. Hot, wet and hot. The night was wet and hot. Hot and wet. Wet and hot. That's humid. The night was humid.
We know the joy of reading a book and sensing that the author has given care to every line. We don't need flowery prose or eye-watering vocab words. We just want to sense that the author has lingered over the sound and cadence of their sentences.
Writing must never be boring. It must not bore the reader, the writer. It must not bore anybody. You have to have juice in each line, don't you see? You don't believe me, but I'm trying to tell you.
That nature comes from the skills of loving to write in school and knowing how to engage the listener and knowing where I'm going to land it or where where it's going to end or where it's not going to end.
You can't say, Mrs. McGillicuddy was sitting in her chair. It was 3:30 p.m. on a southern morning in Georgia. Mr. McGillicuddy was, it's already dead, you see. You must say. The thing.
When we write, we embrace the struggle. The world is this, and words are these evocative clusters of phonemes with imprecise meaning, and our job is to make them meet in interesting ways. It's hard, but that's the fun.
For 2 decades almost, nobody would touch my stuff. Nobody would publish my stories. I couldn't get representation. I didn't have an agent.
Several cartoons where you see Snoopy sitting at the typewriter, and of course he's not a successful writer. He's always getting rejection letters and preemptive rejection letters saying, Snoopy, please don't send us any more of your work.
It was maddening. It was very sad and frustrating and isolating. And I kept writing, not because I thought one day I would win a big award or be published by a big publishing house.
But there are these passages where he's, you see him sitting and writing, and he'll come up with some like horrible pun or something, and then he'll just lie back with delight and be like, it's such a wonderful feeling when you know you've written something really good.
I kept writing out of my love for sentences and the pleasure I find in inhabiting language in this intense, deliberate way.
Deep in everyone, maybe deeper in some than in others, is that Snoopy sitting on the doghouse thinking it's a great feeling when you know you've written something good.
We write. We edit. We kill our darlings because their cuteness serves no higher purpose. We toss out drafts and start again as an act of faith that our future selves will write as well as our past selves did, or better. If a perfectly phrased song lyric has ever festered in your mind, you know what words can do. The only way a sentence could ever take your breath away is if you let yourself imagine it's possible.
But that's impossible!
Listen, someone will always read what you write. You, the you of 7 hours from now or 2 months from now, and you can surprise that reader. You can make them smile or stare wistfully out the window. Here are some lines from a scene I wrote. Our main character realizes he's finally over his ex-girlfriend. To celebrate, he puts on a Green Day song and lets his body get weird. Long view ended, and he muted the algorithmically chosen song that followed. He wandered the apartment, picking crumbs from his bare feet. It felt great to have Zoe out of his mind. No longer would he miss her annoyingly bad Australian accent, the ease with which she fell into his arms after a day of protesting, her dancer's legs capped by mismatched socks. You might not think much of those lines, but when I wrote them, I knew for sure of only one person who would ever read them: me. And I like those lines. I like that he says he's over Zoe, but we can tell he's not. I like the specificity of his memories of her, and the little crumbs that he's picking up from his bare feet. Well, the character has an old Roomba named Mr. French, and this line is a clue for observant readers. If there are crumbs on the floor, Mr. French is not doing his job, which means he's only being kept around as a companion. We write stories hoping people will read them, so yes, I want my name on a spine, and if that ever comes true, something will appear in the corner here. And maybe I'm just saying this to convince myself to believe it, because deep down I'm too focused on the gold ring that is traditional publishing. But no, that's not why we write. The biggest joys of writing, like reading, are solitary, and no publishing industry can take that away from us. My name is Blake. This is Below the Fray.
Are these just doodles that I'm drawing on the page, or are there actual words? Because nobody seems to be reading them.
Just want to say a quick thanks to those of you who were urging me to abandon AI art and voices in my videos, especially those of you who are nice about it. This illustration is by a Brazilian artist named Andy Alvez, whose mural you saw earlier in the video. Working with him was just a delight, and you guys are right. This is the way to do it.